If you found this video enjoyable, please leave a like and hell, even subscribe if you want to. It only takes 2 clicks, and push that notification bell just to get the messages for my videos. That would be greatly appreciated. So it's been a minute since I've done a most terrifying stands video, and recently I have been rereading Steel Ball Run for future ventures with part 6. Now, if you read the title of this video, we are going to be talking about Tusk and all of its forms and abilities in part 7 Steel Ball Run. And since there's a lot to go over, we're going to talk about some of the small things about Tusk and his character. Now, one of the main inspirations for Tusk is the album by Fleetwood Mac of the same name called Tusk, or the song Tusk. That's a lot of Tusks. Now, if you ever heard the song is kind of crazy and all over the place, but for a good reason. Mick Fleetwood would play American Indian wood drumming over the beat, using different kinds of drums and weird vocal lines within the song just to make it kind of sound crazy and all over the place. On top of the fact of using the Trojan Marching Band from Southern California University to help with the song. Now, all the elements within the song all happen individually, all culminating up to a final release with all of them at the very end. Very similar to the build-up that Tusk Act 1 eventually goes through from Tusk Act 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 throughout the entire story of Steel Ball Run. So with the JoJo trailer, Araki doesn't really go crazy with Tusk. He kind of just says that Tusk Act 1 is supposed to be a mascot and how he slowly gradually builds up, eventually becoming this battle-ready stand. Now, with all that lore out of the way, we can finally get into why Tusk eventually becomes the second strongest stand in the series and probably one of the most terrifying. Actually, scratch that, the most terrifying. While Johnny was in the Devil's Palm, he had acquired Tusk. While we didn't actually see the physical form of Tusk, we saw the nails spinning, implying that he actually did have it at the time, or at least a rough idea of Tusk Act 1. But shortly after that, we saw Tusk Act 1 fully show itself with the fight against Wired, or Pork Hat Pie Kid. I don't know how to pronounce his name, and it's really fast and it's really long, but you get the idea. With the early showings of Tusk Act 1, you can really just depend on his power scaling. Either he's kind of almost at like a pistol level or greater than that, just depends on how Johnny wants to shoot his bullets. We've seen him easily cleaver through enemies or pepper them. It just really honestly depends with Tusk Act 1. But unironically and surprisingly, Tusk Act 1 is not very strong nor terrifying. To be honest, the way Johnny uses it, at least in these early fights, is just to kind of play defense or just, not trying to die. It's almost kind of inconsistent how Johnny can either cleaver through opponents or just pepper them with Tusk Act 1, and it's just kind of weird and never explained. And it's kind of weird how Johnny would rather use his environment and his horse rather than Tusk Act 1 to actually do something effective, which is kind of weird, at least with these early fights. Also, the thing looks cute. It's the total opposite of terrifying. You also have to remember this is the first stage of Tusk, so of course it's not going to be this giant terrifying stand that could do this mega amount of damage. It is literally the first stage of becoming something really terrifying, so of course it's not going to really have the craziest of feats. Still pretty cute though. And moving on forward, we get Tusk Act 2. In a weird kind of way, even Johnny notices that Tusk Act 1 isn't consistent nor strong at all, and even starts to doubt his abilities with his stand and himself, and this is majorly shown in the Silent Way arc. Johnny and Gyro are completely outmatched against Soundman, or at the time Sandman. Gyro thinks it's finally a good point to finally show what Johnny is doing wrong with the spin, teaching him about the golden rectangle or the golden ratio. After a brief lesson, Johnny begins to rage quit because he just can't understand this nor, practice under the pressure at the current moment in time. Gyro then shows him an example, then dies, or he faints. Underneath the pressure of all of this and the current situation in hand, Johnny then unlocks his new stand, Tusk Act 2. While Tusk Act 1 can actually do some kind of damage and can be shot multiple times, almost near infinitely with toes and hands, Tusk elevates that even more in Tusk Act 2 with the ability of shooting way stronger bullets only through the hands now, with the added bonus of making spin holes. Now you're probably wondering, Metas, what are spin holes? That's a weird name. Well, when Johnny uses Tusk Act 2 and shoots nearby an object, the resulting impact will cause a small hole to appear. This hole will follow the rules of the golden ratio, and any nearby life form will be automatically traced by this hole. This hole will slowly try to reach the heart of said life form. Funny enough, if you look at the human body through the golden ratio, the spiral point will actually lead towards the heart, which is kind of funny after I reread all these chapters. Now you're probably wondering, is Tusk Act 2 a dramatic rehaul all of Tusk Act 1 and is cost effective. Yes, and dramatically. Tusk Act 2 is so much better than Tusk Act 1 in every way. While Johnny can't shoot near infinite bullets almost spammably, gets reconciled by the fact that Johnny now has stronger bullets and he only roughly has to wait a minute for, with the added bonus of having a AoE type attack to attack his enemies while he waits. There is a reason why we never see Tusk Act 1 again after this point. Tusk Act 2 just becomes the default weapon for Johnny. Not only does it follow the ratio and make his spin stronger, it's just overall a better stand evolution, or act in this case. I would genuinely put Tusk Act 2 at Gyro's level with his steel balls, due to the fact that Johnny can now just hang around Gyro without being a nuisance or just an overall encumbrance to Gyro, when Gyro is using his steel balls pretty casually, might I add, due to the fact that I just think Gyro just has more experience than Johnny when it just comes to just using the spin in general. And yes, while stat guides say that technically, in theory, Tusk Act 2 should use the power of infinity thanks to the golden ratio, it really doesn't show it, and more like the holes themselves show it, so it's kind of a little bit weird when it comes to that, but with later acts it does get shown. The only drawback with Tusk Act 2 is if Johnny is in an environment where there is no rectangle to reference, Tusk Act 2 cannot be used. But since only Zeppelins and Zeppeli guards know this, the only people that would have an advantage over Tusk and Johnny would be like snow type stands. Now, if you are familiar with the term power leveling, Tusk Act 3 is the definition of that. Now, while fighting the Stand Civil War, Johnny has an encounter with Jesus Christ, who gives Johnny the thought of shooting himself to evolve his Act 2 to Act 3. Act 3 can be considered Johnny's way of using the golden rotation, unlike Act 2, which is the Zeppeli's way of using the golden rotation. When Johnny shoots himself, he enters the infinite point spin, where he is able to freely move within this infinite point thanks to Tusk Act 3. And while Act 3 is still activated, Johnny can be within this infinite point spin. Johnny is now able to move anywhere on the battlefield thanks to this, making his shooting power and just the way that he fights is dramatically different. Johnny can position his hand anywhere on the battlefield to fire a nail bullet, while his body can be in a completely different location. And if you get shot by this bullet, it is assumed that it most likely acts very similar to Tusk Act 2, where the bullet will just follow to your heart, or it could act very similar to Johnny's new spin hole, where Johnny is currently located. While in this hole, any object that is other than Johnny will be completely destroyed by this spin hole. Now, we never see Johnny shoot one of these bullets and act like this before, but it can be assumed. But I am of the opinion that it still acts very similar to Tusk Act 2. Now, to put it into perspective, Johnny goes from just shooting bullets that can track you down if he misses you, to having dynamic 3D motion to shoot from basically anywhere while hiding his main body. On top of the fact that while hiding in this hole, you cannot hit him regardless. If you try to enter said hole, your body will be completely destroyed, and the only drawback being Tusk Act 3 needs to be active. Going from basic shooting with an added bonus to all this is just fucking crazy. Not to also mention the fact that Gyro just straight up says that Johnny has surpassed the Zeppeli's teachings of the golden ratio, and now has entered infinity. Now I'm going to clarify again, Johnny goes from shooting and being able to track you to infinity. That is fucking insane and dramatic as hell. Tusk Act 3 alone is strong enough to fight a large majority of stand users from all the other parts. To be honest, I would even say Tusk Act 3 can probably even solo a few off the top of my head with some very light power scaling. The fact that Johnny can just shoot way more dynamically, on top of the fact of being hiding in a spot where nobody can enter, is just crazy. On top of having long range, is just a well developed stand. It's just really good. Tusk Act 3 is very powerful, and it kind of sucks that we only saw just a few glimpses of this stand before being outshined by D4C and its evolution. So how do you go one step further? Tusk Act 3 is incredibly powerful, just having the ability to hide away in a hole that nobody can touch you, with having the added ability of shooting you from pretty much anywhere. Where could you go from here? Well, you add the perfect rotation from the Zeppeli's and you get Tusk Act 4, arguably the second strongest stand in the entire series. While being pressured by Funny Valentine's D4C love train, Johnny has to make the critical decision of using the perfect rotation, which requires a horse in order to use it. He successfully gets a horse and perfects the perfect rotation, entering into Tusk Act 4. And to give some actual context here, no one is actually able to touch D4C / Funny Valentine while he has love train activated. The only way to actually touch Funny Valentine is through Ball Breaker, a Zeppeli technique, which was used but was not perfect, failing in the end. Now you have have to remember, D4C Love Train is a stand that can manipulate time through just action. If you try to hurt D4C Love Train in any way, it will redirect attacks to any point in history or anywhere in the world. Tusk Act 4 does not care. It breaks down this dimensional barrier and rips it open, attacking Funny Valentine. Now we're gonna have to enter some Funny Valentine scaling to get a really good perspective on Act 4. The fact that Funny Valentine can just, redirect shots to different points in history just kind of, scales them to be at least bare minimum 3D plus to 4D, and guide statements saying that he is above dimensions just put a lot of perspective in the fact that Act 4 just does this casually and just rip opens this barrier of time and space to literally attack him implies a lot. Now, that is just the act of breaking down a barrier. Act 4 can do a lot more, and I mean a lot more. When attacking, Act 4 uses the infinite rotation, which, when attacked by it, all cells in the body begin to rotate infinitely, killing you in the process. And if you try to, let's say, run and hide, you will be pulled back to the place you were shot. And it just doesn't matter on this plane. If you try to, example here, leave this dimension, it will kill you in that said dimension infinitely. Funny Valentine tried to swap bodies a numerous amount of times, but every time he could not escape. The infinite rotation kept on chasing after him infinitely. Now you're probably wondering, there has to be some type of solution to stop the infinite rotation. Well, yes, there is. Another infinite rotation. But counterpoint here, there is only one Johnny in the entire multiverse with Act 4, meaning that nobody can stop it unless it's Johnny himself, meaning that it is literally impossible to stop this thing no matter what. But it doesn't end there. Tusk Act 4 was able to beat D4C Love Train, a being that transcends dimensions, who had the ability to redirect attacks to different places on Earth/time, was beat by Tusk Act 4. But when it comes to Diego Brando and the world, shit gets even crazier. Now, for the sake of argument here, we're going to assume Dio from Part 3 and Diego Brando from Part 7 are more or less the same when comparing stands, meaning that Tusk Act 4 can either move at light speed or massively faster than light speeds, which just makes Tusk Act 4 even more terrifying than he already was. Other than that, the next major highlight is pretty important. Tusk Act 4 can move during frozen time by controlling gravity that the spin controls. So if there was any doubt that Tusk Act 4 wasn't 4D or at least, high 3D, this basically confirms it. Now, Johnny can't actually utilize Tusk Act 4 during frozen time, but the fact that he was able to pull off some of Jotaro's shit during this fight is crazy enough. Now, I know some people are going to say, but didn't Diego win that fight? And yes, he did, but he had prep time and the entire plan of Funny Valentine helping him out throughout that entire fight. If Diego didn't know he was going to get one-shotted by the infinite rotation, he would have died. Like, I'm going to be completely serious here. Diego is smart, but he's not that smart to figure out this thing was going to kill him in one shot. It just kind of proves the fact that nobody can really stop this thing if you don't know what you're fighting against. The fact that Johnny can just go up to a person while on a horse and fire this thing is just mind-bogglingly stupid. It can't be stopped unless Johnny stops it. It will track you down for infinity to end you. It's so powerful that it can literally destroy a barrier that was holding back time and space. It can invade frozen time and can pretty much beat almost anything if you don't have a good idea of the stand beforehand. And not to mention the fact there's also the implication that I might be able to break down any barrier, not just defensive ones, just anything that's in its way. And the fact that it can use power of infinity, it could break down dimensional barriers and enter different realities, possibly very similar to D4C Love Train. But that one is just for speculation. But it doesn't end there. Nope, it does not. So you see, during Part 8's run, we see Johnny with the ability to walk thanks to the spin. Now, you're probably saying, Metas, what does walking have to do anything with Tusk Act 4, or any of the Tusks for that matter? Well, you see here, viewer, walking is kind of crucial to the human body. It allows you to do a lot of things. Walk countless numbers of miles on a day, give you the ability to run, do things that would, require some pretty physical gaining things. The ability to move in a fight even, if necessary. Things that you do on a day-to-day basis with your legs without caring or even wondering even. Now, add all of that to Johnny's limp legs. Shit gets wild real quick. All previous acts now have a wild way of now attacking. The fact that Act 2 is now more mobile is wild enough. Now Act 3 can literally move anywhere. Johnny doesn't even have to be in a hole now. And just imagine what Act 4 could do with Johnny running at somebody. That shit is wild. Johnny can actually do proper movement in a dramatic way that could affect anything infinitely. I'm not even joking here, and I'm totally going off script. script, but the fact that, you know, Johnny can just run at somebody leads to an infinite number of possibilities. Like, Johnny literally just becomes a better person and a better stand user with his legs in like early part 8. But just imagine Act 4 or even Act 3 for that matter with Johnny with legs. Like, that's crazy. All the stands get a dramatic increase in power just because of this. It's wild. Movement is critical in fights, and the fact that part 8 Johnny has legs just means he can do a lot more now. It's just the entire point I'm trying to get at here. To be honest, this stand really deserves the most terrifying stand's name. It's just way too powerful. It literally will just one-shot things. If you don't have a stand that, actually no, I'm gonna take that back. You just can't win. Like, I'm gonna be honest, you get hit by this thing once, you're dead. Unless you're Dio over Heaven, which has the ability to literally rewrite reality, you can't win. Just plain cut and simple. Unless you can speed blitz him or, you know, outsmart Johnny, which I don't think is too hard, but just the fact that this thing still can one-shot and messing up once can just end your life just is crazy. Like, Tusk Act 4 is no joke and one of the most terrifying stands and one of the most strongest. Well, that is the end of the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, stay hydrated. I'll see you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen.